Again, this is the August 12th, 2020 Business and Economic Development Board meeting. And due to COVID-19 pandemic considerations, this meeting is being held virtually by Communications Media Technology, or CMT. With this new technology, we anticipate, obviously, there's always a few hiccups and challenges along the way, but we've been doing this now for a few months, and so I think each time we do it, we're getting a little better and working through a few of the challenges. I would like to restate that the agenda was put out approximately a week ago. If you are listening by phone, you will be able to comment, but there will be a specific time for that. And I'll go over some of those details here in a few minutes. For the meeting to run efficiently, we should not talk over each other. And here are some of the guidelines I'd like to just mention to you. I will keep my microphone unmuted at all times to help keep the flow of the meeting going. As panelists, I would ask that you keep your microphones muted until you're called upon. When you have finished speaking, please mute your microphone. I think everybody here today has their cameras going, so it's that helps a lot. So if you do want to speak, if you just want to raise your hand, try to get the attention, that will help. Also, I don't know if we all know each other. It's been 3 years since this board has met, but we do have several members that may not know each other. We have board member Mark Durman, board member Don Willis, and board member Jared Saff. We have another board member, Ron Folino. I don't see Ron on here yet. He may pop in here in a few minutes. We'll see. Now, there is going to be an opportunity for the public to comment. And at the appropriate time, we will ask the board secretary if there is a member of the of the public that would like to comment on the business matters at the appropriate time. Those comments will be 3 minutes, and city forum will be followed. Okay, so that's behind us. I would like to talk briefly. Obviously, we don't have a chair and a vice chair to run the meeting. We can do several things. The board can either ask me to run it temporarily. The board can temporarily elect themselves a chairperson until we get to that business item of the election of a chair and vice chair. It really is just the board's, will. How would you all like to run this?
Dave, I think it would probably be best if you ran this initial meeting.
Okay, is Mr. Durman, Mr. Saft, are you comfortable and okay with that?
That's fine with me.
I concur.
All right, well, let's do that then. If you have your agenda in front of you, I'm just going to kind of briefly go through that. The first 4 pages, 1 through 4, is our instructions for residents to be involved. And there's really 2 primary ways that our residents can be involved. And that the first was, prior to this meeting, we asked that any residents who had written correspondence, either emailed or hand delivered, provide those to the city's 24 hours prior to this meeting. Our board secretary, Patty, checked that today, and there were no written comments. Also, like I said earlier, there is an opportunity for the residents to speak during the GoToWebinar meeting at the appropriate time, and I will ask Patty at that appropriate time if there are any hands raised. Now let's get into the actual agenda itself. I do think we do need to elect a chair and vice chair. for that reason, I would ask, is there any nominations for a chairperson for the Business and Economic Development Board?
I would like to nominate Mr. Derman, since he is the only one who has been on this board and met with this board before.
All right. Are there, Mr. Derman, do you agree with that? Would you accept that?
I could. I just don't have a whole lot of experience being a chairperson for a board. So
you would do fine, Mark. You would do fine.
All right. So everybody likes me to be chair. I just can't. I'm trying to pull up my agenda. I saw it last night and read through it, but I can't seem to find it again now. So are you going to scroll through the agenda as we have this meeting? Because I have it up on the screen. I see somebody's cursor moving around. Yeah. Okay.
We certainly will do that, but let's kind of finalize our election of our chair. So if Mr. Derman, if you agree to do that, is there a second for Mr. Derman to be the chairperson?
Jared Saff seconds that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chairperson? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of Mr. Derman being the new chair, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, congratulations, Chairperson Derman.
Thank you.
Mr. Derman, you just let me know how you would like to handle it. If you would like me to continue running the meeting, that's fine. Or if you want to take over, please, that's however you want to handle it.
I prefer you go ahead and keep handling the meeting. You're doing great.
Okay. The next matter of business is to get ourselves a vice chair. So I would entertain any nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Don Willis for vice chair.
All right, Don, would you be willing to?
I think Jared waited until I took a drink.
Well, I think you've been on this board probably maybe 5 minutes longer than I have. So by that logic.
Okay, so we're going by seniority logic.
Yes, sir.
All right, Don, is that, would you accept that?
Certainly.
Okay, is there a second for Don's nomination?
I'll second it.
All right. Are there any other nominations from the floor? All right, hearing none. Everybody in favor of Don Willis being the vice chair, please say aye.
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 All right. So that concludes that. I also, you know what, Mark, please don't feel bad. I skipped our roll call, so please don't feel bad about running a meeting. I'm going to ask Patty, our board chair, to go ahead and our board secretary, to go ahead and do our roll call. Patty, can you take it from here?
Absolutely. Mr. Derman?
Present.
Mr. Fulmino? Mr. Saft?
Present.
And Mr. Willis?
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then our next matter of business is the approval of the meeting minutes from May 9th, 2017. Those were included in your agenda packet that you received, so hopefully you've had some time to review those and go through them. And if there are no comments or revisions to the minutes, then
I just have one comment. Just one comment, Dave, that I was there and I agree that the minutes reflect that meeting accurately.
All right, thank you. If there's no further comments, I would entertain a motion to pass the minutes, to approve the minutes as written.
Yeah, I was there also, so I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Patty, would you like to do a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Durman,
Yes.
Mr. Saft,
Yes.
and Mr. Willis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Our next matter of business, and this is really why we're here today, is to discuss the current situation that we're in. And I'm going to be reading and referring to the memo that is in your agenda packet from myself to the Business and Economic Development Board. It's dated July 21st. And I'm gonna read from portions of it, and then I'll also paraphrase other portions of it. And at its July 16th regular meeting, the City Council requested staff to convene a meeting of the Business and Economic Development Board to brainstorm ideas and discuss the current economic conditions faced by the city's business community due to the current COVID-19 emergency. The city, like many other cities and throughout the country, frankly, have taken steps to address the situation we're in. And we have, as you can see, the memo includes 2 resolutions that the City Council passed at its May 19th meeting to hopefully ease some of the burden, particularly financial burden, placed on residents and businesses in the city. And I'll just go through those really briefly. Resolution number 2020-12 waived and reduced certain city fees, and those included a reduction of 50% of building permit fees, reduce all city board application fees by 50%. If you don't know, we do annual fire inspections of most businesses, and there's a fee associated with that. So those have been waived. We've also deferred the payment of a business tax receipt by 60 days for a new business. And I'm sure most of you know that we have a monthly Friday Fest, which we have not been doing during COVID days, but we do have a Friday Fest that we've waived the fees for city businesses through September. Also, at that same meeting, the council approved resolution number 2020-01, which established new building permit fees primarily. And those are attached to the agenda cover. And you can see that there was a reduction primarily in the lower valuations. Building permit fees are categorized by different valuations, say from 0 to 1,000.
Dave,
500.
Dave, if I could interrupt and help just a little bit there.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that Mark's very familiar with the building permit fees as a contractor, but the rest of our audience and the rest of the board may not be. But the lower tier fees had been raised in recent years, and we went ahead and lowered them. And the reason we particularly targeted those is because that's where the rubber hits the road, if you will, with building permits. And I'm talking about fences, air conditioner replacement, roof replacement, those things that the average homeowner and a lot of our local businesses, those are daily permits. We do a lot of those every day. So that's a real good place to look at for a building permit fee reduction. And the council, as Dave said, did approve that. And that new fee structure is going to be taking effect on October 1st. The reason it was delayed till October 1st was because, as Dave said, the council already reduced building permit fees by half just as a COVID-19 measure. So they're already reduced 50%. When the new, and that 50% reduction is through September 30th. That's the end of our fiscal year. Come October 1st, that 50% reduction will be gone. But now we're entering this new era of lower building permit fees. So that's to say, we'll be in the new normal of building permit fees come October 1st, which are reduced from before. but in all practicality, it'll be slightly more than what it is now, because right now it's reduced 50%. When it comes October 1st, it'll raise to that new normal, which is less than it was pre-COVID. So we've reduced in both cases, and the council did that on purpose. So there was never a period where people were paying what they were paying before. It's always less than what they've been paying before. And I hope that's not too confusing. Across the board, building permit fees, especially where the rubber hits the road, have been reduced.
Yeah, and that's where we issue the largest number of permits that we issue are in those first couple of categories. As Todd said, air conditioning, fences, things like that. So we really were trying to reach out and help our residents and our small business owners. So, and I'd really just like to wrap up my portion of it by saying that you folks on the bed board are really an advisory committee to the city council. And as such, the council has reached out to you and said, hey, let's brainstorm. Let's think about other ways that perhaps we're not currently thinking of that the city what can we do as a city to help our residents, to help our businesses, and primarily through these tough times, because obviously we don't know when this is going to end, and we're just reaching out to come up with new ideas. Like I said, we're in government, and that's how we think, and so we're asking business folks is there something we're missing? Is there something we're not considering and looking at? So really, I'd just like to open it up to the board, and if you have any thoughts or ideas, please share those with us. What the intent would be is to bring those back to the city council and let them know what your thoughts were, and they may end up actually becoming a part of the city's how we operate moving forward. If there's additional operational things that we can do, or different fee reductions, we don't know it all, and so we're reaching out to see to pick your brains, basically. So anyway, that's enough of my blabbering. I'm going to turn it over to the board and just open it up for.
Can I start by asking a question, and maybe it's directed at Todd? There are several projects underway in the city, larger projects, hotels and things like that. Is there any kind of status on where those stand, and what's kind of going on right now from an economic activity standpoint?
Yeah, we do have several starts with hotels. The Spring Hill Suites. This is on the west side of A1A, down towards Puerto Rio and Bayside. They're just opening now with a temporary CO. So they passed all their inspections, and they're finally at that point where they're able to generate some revenue. The one that's just in front of that, I'm going to say behind Zachary's, is just coming out of the ground. They have their permit. Or Dave, can you tell me what's going on with that? The building permit was issued, or was a foundation only permit?
Yeah, I think it was a foundation only permit. Okay. That's a yeah.
So that may be slowed a little bit, Mr. Saft, potentially, but the property has got the new Spring Hill Suite, so that's operating, and that's important. And that's the same property as the Radisson, of course. Then if we take you across the street on the east side there, behind Homewood Suites, we have the new dual brand 224 room hotel. They are under their full CO, and presumably, Dave, they're operating. Have you talked to anybody from LBA recently, the LBA group, on that?
They are operating. I believe, and this is anecdotal, I believe that they're all running around between 30 and 50% occupancy.
Well, yeah, I can definitely testify to that, because I've gotten the STR reports from the Space Coast Office of Tourism. They are currently around the 50 to 54% occupancy range. Compared to this time last year, they're around the 75% range. This is when that starts to take a little bit of a dive, not much seasonally though, it does take a dive. So I would say since COVID started, the first dip in March, April was disastrous for our hotels. It was occupancy rates were in the tens, the teens. And it slowly started to climb up in the 20% and then the 25% over the next few months. We've just, in the last 2 months, we've been in the mid 50 percentile range with hotel occupancies. So that seems to have become the new normal for hotels. And I'm sure they're grateful for it. We're grateful for it. The other thing to note is the average daily rate has decreased somewhat. We used to be in the high 180s per night as the average daily rate, and now we're seeing average daily rates in the upper 160s. But still, Cape Canaveral hotels are doing better in Brevard County than a lot of other markets in Brevard County, which I'm very grateful to see. Key to our market, of course, is the cruise industry. The cruise industry has been on the no sail order. It's been extended now a second time. We don't know when people are going to start cruising again. Those heads in beds at hotels are roughly 50% of that business comes from the cruise industry. So I would say that's pretty accurate. If you lost roughly 50% of your business and you're on 50% occupancy, considering that normally we're in the 90s, that's about right. Until I would say the cruise industry bounces back, we're going to be looking at these 50 percentile occupancy rates. And once that comes back, who knows when, we'll probably see the occupancy rates gets back up in the 90s. We'll see the average daily rates come back up into the high 180s again. It's just anybody's guess on when that's going to happen. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Sapp.
It does. And, you know, the reason I asked that, amongst others, is there's a lot of things we can do and there's some things we can't. And my concern is the issue we're dealing with right now is fear, right? We could throw all the money in the world at some of these problems, and I don't think it's going to solve what the underlying problem is. People are afraid. They don't know where to get accurate information about, you know, what precautions and which, you know, what's happening out there. And my experience has been there's a lot of businesses doing things right, and there's a lot of businesses that are not doing things right. And while I know we are not in the business of, you know, playing, you know, God and trying to decipher between the two, at the same point, my mind steers away from some economic incentives and more toward what can we do to help reinforce those businesses that are doing things right, that may need help getting the word out that, hey, we are following all the protocols that the CDC is putting out there. We are doing these. We are making our, you know, customers walk in, wear the mask, follow the orders, whatever. And how do we then, you know, I don't know if it's an accreditation or something that says, hey, we've looked at their protocols and we've said they're doing it right. And I don't know if that's something that we can do, but, you know, when the issue is fear, I'm trying to find ways to alleviate that fear in, you know, potential customers for businesses who may just be afraid to walk in the door.
Yeah, that's a tough question. How do you alleviate the fear when so many people are just in fear to leave their own homes? And of course, we're under a safer at home advisory, and that we still try to do that when we can. It's not always possible. We still have to go out and go to the grocery store, and just certain things we are going to have to go out and do. But I think you're seeing a lot of the restaurants hurt because people don't go there. They don't have the social lives that they used to have. And I miss it. I know you all miss it too, being able to go out and maybe have a dinner and a drink with your loved ones. And it's just not there. But City Council, one of the very first things that they did to be responsive to our restaurants, our retail, the service-oriented businesses, right out of the gate, City Council waived the prohibition on two types of signs. There's the feather flag signs, which I know you've seen, and you know they're colorful and they're maybe 12 feet tall. They used to be prohibited. City Council says, okay, now you can have one of those. City Council also waived the prohibition on snipe signs. Those are the little ones, you know, like a typical election sign, and it's got the metal legs that stick in the ground. You're allowed to have one of those too. So some of our businesses have been taking advantage of that to say, we're open. We're still here. We're open. Come see us. And we still see that. I'm glad to see that out on A1A, particularly. You see it out there. And that's the City Council's attempt with staff input to to try to get people back out there to say, you know, those of you who are willing to go out, place is still open. We're still here. We're open for business. I don't know about y'all, but I have also taken to doing the DoorDash. I don't know, but I find that I look at that as a safe alternative where, you know, the restaurants and the businesses are still able to have their business, but you're safer at home. You're abiding by that. But I think that's a great point that you bring up, Mr. Saft. What can we do to help people with the fear? Obviously, we can't go against any CDC guidelines. We have to support all those CDC guidelines. So I think getting the message out there that our businesses are open is something we can explore. The only thing we've really looked at so far is the signage aspect of it. But perhaps we could do more, maybe with our city website, perhaps to have more of a presence there and an advertisement about, I know we did have a business task force that worked on this. And I don't know if Molly's on this call right now, so she could talk about where we are in the business task force that we worked on with City Cocoa Beach, just for the purpose of having a clearinghouse of sorts on the city website of businesses that are open. Here's our name, here's, you know, our phone number, here's our hours, just the basic boilerplate kind of stuff out there, keeping that current and in the public's eye. But that's where we're looking at other ideas like that to just say we're still open for business, we're still here. Would love to hear any other thoughts we have on that.
Not only open for business, but hey, we've committed to following all of these principles. And is there a way that we put that, you know, safe standard up there on the site and say, look, you know, every one of these businesses in our community has made a commitment to A through Z, and we want to highlight them because they're doing the right thing. And in turn, we ask you as community citizens, if you care about small businesses in our community, you know, please go and patronize them, whether it's DoorDash or, you know, walking in the restaurant. So I just think that's the fundamental issue. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of large projects. You know, candidly, the fees you're paying to the city are not going to fundamentally alter the mechanics of, or, you know, the financial mechanics of whether or not it makes sense to move forward with the project. So, you know, I think some of those things are nice. I totally agree with what you guys have done so far what we've done so far in terms of, you know, helping homeowners, you know, for those smaller projects. But on the larger side, I don't know that that's the underwriting issue that's going to make a project move forward or not, which is why I asked you the question. So I'll yield time to the others, but those were some of my initial thoughts.
Great thoughts. Thank you.
Well, one concern I have is, would we, by listing those things on the city's website, is the city then perceived as endorsing certain businesses?
No, we made it clear when this business task force started was that it's open to all businesses. And I'm trying to see if Molly can join us. I just invited her to it. She can talk more intelligently than I can about the business task force. But it was a boilerplate information. You can't, for instance, say, you know, we've got a special on calzones this week. You know, it's just name, phone number, hours of operation kind of a thing.
A second thing, do we have any statistics on the small businesses in Cape Canaveral, the ones that have folded up shop since COVID-19, new businesses coming in, any statistics along that line?
No, but we have opened the doors for them to contact us to let us know if there's anything we can do in particular for those businesses, but I don't have a list of those that have closed.
Yeah, we may be able to provide some data on new businesses, and we would do that through our business tax receipt list. So we could run a query on new businesses as of, you know, just set that query for whatever dates we want to. So that potentially could get to where we want to go as far as the new businesses side of the question.
Is there any kind of a roster of businesses that were located in Cape Canaveral prior to COVID-19?
Yeah, that business tax receipt database, that's one of the benefits of having that. We can see, we can sort it by where they are and report on that.
Is that something we could get access to?
Sure, absolutely. We can forward a report, sure.
I would like to see it and just do my own research on who's still here. And if I can find out why they're not here. If you wouldn't mind getting it to me, I would appreciate it.
It's the business. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No, I was going to say we'll get a list of the BTRs, the businesses, and we'll forward that to all members of the board.
And I think, Dave, what Mr. Willis is asking specifically about is, can that report to businesses that have closed in recent months? And to my knowledge, we don't have that, because business tax receipts are they're a once a year thing. They renew annually, so it just shows if they've renewed, and that would have been as of September 1st of last year. I think the intel that we're looking for is what businesses have closed since September 1st of last year and why. And we're going to have to scratch our heads a little bit more to see if we can come up with that data for you, Don.
Well, I'm willing to find it out on my own if need be.
Well, if you can be a little patient, we're getting ready to resend out our BTRs. That's coming up here shortly. So that'll kind of reset we can perhaps compare who's on this list versus who was on last year's list. So we may be able to get you some information on that. Now, the reason why they closed that might be, we may not be able to drill down into the data that far. I don't know, but we'll take a look at that.
Mr. Morley and Mr. Dickey, I guess I would ask you guys, I mean, I'm sure you have colleagues and friends who have similar positions in other similarly sized cities and jurisdictions. Are there any measures that they have undertaken that you've seen or heard of that either have been successful or the jury is still out on, that you would recommend for discussion by this board as a recommendation to the city council?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's where we started when the council meeting in May, when we brought to the council, there were some, I don't know, 8 or 10 different things that we could do in the city. Before we came up with that list, we researched other cities to see what they had done or were currently doing. And as a matter of fact, Councilmember Morrison, that was a point of his to go over specifically some of those findings that were done in the city of Melbourne. I recall had quite a few. So we talked about every one of those points at that council meeting and made sure where applicable, we were doing it too. So this is back in May. So as of May, I would say I felt really confident that we had done everything that the other cities had done to date. But your point is a good one, because we haven't resurveyed those cities since May. So I think that's a good action point right there, Dave. Let's take that down to reach back out to the other cities to see what else they have done since May. And maybe, don't reinvent the wheel. If somebody else has got that information out there, let's steal it from them. That'd be great. A lot of good ideas can come up that way.
Will do.
Thank you, Mr. Seff. That's a good point. Any other ideas out there from the board?
None for me.
I think the only thing I would add, beyond what I've said already is, I do think that it would be helpful for us to survey local businesses and find out, some of their ideas of the things they think that we can help and support with. Some of them may be unrealistic. Some of them, may be things that we're not thinking about. But I don't know if we have a mechanism to survey, local businesses that they can share some of that intel with us directly.
One of the things we can look at is doing a Survey Monkey outreach. We've done that in the past for different reasons, and we can specifically target those businesses in the 32920 zip code with some questions. That's a good idea. So let's talk a moment about those questions that might be in that survey. And obviously one of them is, how has COVID-19 affected your business? Another one obviously is what can the city do to help? Are there other questions that we can think of to put in that survey? I mean, those are the two.
Yeah, I think we would want to understand their best prognostication of how long they foresee the impact to their business, right? So hotels may say, you know, look, cruise lines open up in October or November when they're supposed to, and things start to feel normal next year. A restaurant may say to you, look, I'm going to be gone by September 1st or September 15th if something doesn't happen. So I think maybe some sort of question about, you know, prognostication of their business specifically, and then maybe their industry within the city might give us some interesting intelligence.
Okay. Yep, that's another good action item. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments on the survey? Okay, that's good. So we've got 2 actionable items there. Thank you. Any other ideas? Dave, I'm not hearing any others. What's our next item of business on the agenda?
That was really it, Todd. Yeah, that was the last item.
Okay.
So we can, I think what I'd like to just, as Todd said, we've got a couple of items that we need to follow up with, which we will start on tomorrow. And as soon as we have some information or some data that it will be useful to the board, we'll get that out to you. And we'll probably, I think we would need to reconvene so we can discuss some of this information before we made any recommendations or provided any input to the city council. So let's plan on getting some information to you. We'll reach back out to the board to see if when a convenient time is for the group. We'll have a further follow-up conversation, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, that sounds good. Anybody have any final thoughts or comments before?
Yeah, can I ask kind of an related question, and that is, you know, what does the financial health of the city look like, you know, with projections of what tax receipts and whatnot, you know, plan to be? You know, obviously that will have a large impact in what our ability is to kind of what we can and can't do beyond just, you know, maybe some fee changes and whatnot. So is there any kind of outlook into that?
Well, there's no direct financial assistance programs from the city. I can tell you the financial health of the city is good. The council many years ago established a 20% undesignated reserve, which is very healthy, and it's there for a reason. It's there for hurricanes, other natural disasters, COVID-19 or other things. And sometimes we have to tap into that. So the health of the city is, we're doing great as a city. We are in the budget season right now. City council just approved a tentative millage rate at the rollback rate. So that will just keep the revenues from taxes the same as they were last year. But our accrued revenues are down. We projected 50% of accrued revenues. These are the recurring things like the state sales tax share, the fees and charges for, you know, utility services and whatnot. They're down about 50%. So there's a loss there, but the bulk of our revenue is still intact. We're going to say those accrued revenues are going to continue to take a hit for the duration of the COVID-19. But I think what we're thinking about for business assistance is maybe we don't have, you know, cash assistance type of giveaway things, but maybe there's other things the city can do that perhaps we hadn't thought of. You know, we did talk about signage. Yeah, that helps. We did talk about a website. Yeah, that helps. But what else can we do out there? And I think that's part of the outreach in this survey that we do, would just help us think about ways the city can help. Some of it can just be communication. Maybe that's just the key to the whole thing. So there's my thoughts on that. Sorry, my phone's ringing.
They've got some ideas for you, Todd.
And I hope that answers your question.
Anybody else have any thoughts or comments before we wrap it up?
Nope.
All right. Well, if not, then I'd entertain a motion to dismiss or to
Adjourn.
adjourn.
That would be from the board.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all very much. I think this has been very productive. And as Dave said, we'll be reaching out to you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you,
Good to see you,
gentlemen.
Todd. Nice meeting you, Don.